Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I have the honor to serve as this year's president of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. We are a community of 300 men and women from all walks of Oakland's civic, commercial, and community life, committed to Rotary motto of service of self. I'd like to welcome you to the 5,308th club meeting. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually. So if you're a visiting Rotarian, or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let us know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box located in the center bottom on the screen you're indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in the meeting. Also, we recommend all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. And now, for our thought for the day, Rotarian Dominique Enriquez.
Thank you, Ces. So, in light of today's meeting topic, which includes dismantling barriers for racial injustices and creating conditions for collective organizing, I wanted to share this thought for the day for each of us as individuals to mull over. This quote comes from women's rights activist, Black feminist, and author Adrienne Maree Brown. Do you already know that your existence, who and how you are, is in and of itself a contribution to the people around you? Not after or because you do some particular thing, but simply the miracle of your life, and that the people around you have contributions as well? Do you understand that your quality of life and your survival are tied to how authentic and generous the connections are between you and the people you live with? Are you actively practicing generosity and vulnerability in order to make the connections between you and others clear, open, available, durable? Generosity here means giving of what you have without strings or expectations attached. Vulnerability means showing your needs.
Thank you, Dominique. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by jointly reciting our vision, which is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. I must begin this meeting with a sad note. It is with deep sadness that I share with you the unfortunate news of 16-year member of the board of directors, Richard Halleck, passed away unexpectedly last Friday, September 4, 2020. Rick was active on the Live Oak Committee and served as chair of the committee for the past year and a half. He was recipient of the club's Dan Lazar Good Job Award for 2018 and 19 year. He is survived by his wife Renata, daughter Carolyn, a sophomore at UC Davis, and son Jens, a junior in high school. I ask that we have a moment of silence in Richard's Halleck name.
Oh my God.
The family has set up a GoFundMe page for funeral and other expenses. The link will be shared in the chat and of course, in the Live Oak. I hope you enjoyed last week's meeting that featured John Bean, longtime football coach of Laney College, Eagles, and Skyline High Titans. He was quite an inspiration. This week we go across the street to from Laney to the Oakland Museum to get our speaker, Lori Fogarty. And we will also find out what's up with our Cerronelina Scholarship Committee. So sit back and enjoy another in our great Civic Thursday meetings where you catch a great speaker and get involved with Rotary where service above self exists. Now, past District Governor Ed Jelen, do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Well, we have a nice guest with us today, President Ces. Wendy Howard has a guest. Her name is Lisa Rooney-Zari, and we're very happy to have Lisa with us. So, Wendy, thank you for bringing a guest, and Lisa, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Ed, and welcome, guest Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's get started with the meeting with our Business Development Committee meeting sponsor for this week, Rotarian Jesse Smith.
Thank you very much, President Ces. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. My name is Jesse Schmidt, and I am the owner of Truth Not Trends. Truth Not Trends is an online personal training company that helps you maximize your strength safely in 1 hour per week. So a little bit about me. I was born in Oakland in '87. I'm a big A's fan. I grew up in Alameda and graduated from Encinal High School, graduated from UCLA, and I've played just about every sport there is in the book. My favorite one was always baseball, and lately it's been American Ninja Warrior. This is my business partner, Liam Bauer. We met 3 years ago, and he's been a trainer for just about as long as I've been alive. And he made a big impact on me by helping me fix some injuries, build some strength much more efficiently and safely than I did before. And we have launched a podcast together called the Truth Not Trends podcast. It's available on all major podcast platforms. So why is building strength important in the first place? Well, there's some big reasons for everyone. And those are, when you build strength, you build muscle, and that gives you more energy throughout your day. You also reduce your risk of osteoporosis and many other chronic diseases, metabolic syndrome. You increase your bone mineral density, so that shows up in your DEXA scan when you go in and you see you actually have more bone density in there than you did before. And especially in times like this, doing consistent strength training helps you increase your immunity. So this is an article that was posted in the Washington Post just a week ago. Cardio isn't enough for a healthy heart, add resistance training. And this is one of the misconceptions about strength training, is that it doesn't do anything for your cardiovascular system, and it absolutely does. So how do we do it at TNT? Well, we focus on intensity of exercise and stimulating new strength and muscle by working to positive failure, which can be a little intimidating for people sometimes. And so we like to remind you that we keep things safe, and hopefully you can see this video of me doing a very slow lunge. So we're moving very slowly when we're doing our exercises, and also making sure that you're resting a couple days in between each workout to fully recover. So we have an offer for Rotarians and guests, and that is $150 off your first 3 months of subscription with TNT if you do the once a week subscription, and $300 off your first 3 months if you do a twice a week subscription. This is if you sign up in the month of September. And I will leave you with this video of myself doing some American Ninja Warrior stuff. I don't know if you guys can see it, but enjoy if you can. All of this in the slides will be available to you. All you have to do, I think Pat's going to send them out after the meeting. So you will be able to find our website, schedule a consultation if you like. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's still showing. All right, we got it all in there.
I'll share the slideshow if you want to see the video again.
That was great, Jesse.
Thank you.
So we have a tradition of transitioning our red badge to the blue badge, the newer member to a fully engaged member, when that member completes certain tasks, like joining a committee, going through a new membership orientation, and given to the Rotary Foundation or the Oakland Rotary Endowment. And finally, the one thing that they need to do is give a 3-minute self-introduction. Today, we have Tori Howard giving her 3-minute introduction. Tori.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess. Thank you, President Ces, for introducing me. I have officially been a member with this club since March of 2018, but I had just never gotten around to doing my self-introduction. A little bit about me, I had actually been volunteering with this club for about 4 years before I officially joined. I started because my mom is Rotarian and had really just been enjoying her experiences, and my very first event with Rotary was the Kinder Prep field trip to the zoo, which is still one of my favorite field trips to do every year. A little bit about myself. I don't know, I'm born and raised here in Oakland. I am really passionate about giving back to the community whenever I can, which is why I really fell in love with Rotary right from the start. Something that I want to do for myself for the future, as far as like my future goals, is that I would like to become a lawyer someday, as I know many of you Rotarians are, and ultimately a judge in the longer term in my career is my end goal. A little bit more about me. I've always been involved with nonprofits as far as work, and so that includes some of the more recent ones are like I worked with the Alameda County Food Bank. I've worked with the Oakland Promise, which is an initiative out of the mayor's office. I've worked with seniors. I've worked with students in school. Anything that I can do to feel like I'm making a contribution to the community here in Oakland. And yeah, and so I've just really, really enjoyed the connections here at Rotary. I've enjoyed, I don't know, I've enjoyed just the range of things that Rotary is involved in. So, you know, everything from clean water projects in other countries to putting the lights up around the lake here in Oakland. Like, you know, it's amazing to see the range and the depth of Rotary's connection to the community. And just, I feel like if I'm going to make a difference, this is the perfect place to do it. And so I really enjoyed my time here in the club, and I hope to continue to be here for the rest of my life. Because even though Oakland Rotary is the 3rd Rotary Club, it's actually #1 in my book because I think we're the best. And that may be a personal bias, but you know, yeah. So, what else? Yeah,
That's
I
your
think that's
3 minutes?
I think that's 3 minutes. That's close enough. 3 minutes.
Okay, Tori. Thank you so much for that introduction. When we return to in-person meetings, your shiny new blue badge indicating your completion of permanent member requirements is waiting on you. So congratulations once again.
Thank you so much.
Rotarian Mark Rosen from the High Adventure Committee has an announcement. I think he's with us this time now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Now, I had some slides, but I'm not going to present those because the adventures we had for this weekend, the hike for Saturday and the cycling because of the air quality has been canceled. I talked to Robert Kidd this morning, and he was out on site in Pleasant Hill, Alpiones, and we've decided the air quality out there is horrible. And the air quality over in Point Richmond is higher in particles than it is in Pleasant Hill. So we are going to defer this and just watch your emails and your announcements on the website for our upcoming activities. That's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for that announcement. Rotarians Steve Blair and Fred Morris from the Cerronelina Scholarship Committee. What's happening with Scholarship Committee? Steve?
Well, thank you, President Ces. Today I'm here on a recruiting mission for the Cerronelina Committee. And this committee awards scholarships and provides mentors to students from Oakland who are the first in their family to attend college. And our committee has been awarding scholarships for almost 60 years. And in the past few years, we've partnered with Oakland Promise. And this year we provided mentors and a $2,000 a year scholarship to 9 students who we introduced to the club back in June. Next year, we anticipate funding at least that many students. And consequently, we're recruiting mentors. And at this point, I want to say that mentoring these students is an incredibly rewarding and enjoyable experience. And to provide a glimpse into why I say this, I've asked Maren Benty to join our conversation. Maren's one of our scholars, and I was fortunate to be her mentor. She graduated from Middlebury College last year and is going to tell us about her experience with the program and a bit about what she's going to do next. Go ahead, take it away, Maren.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see everyone, and thank you, Steve, for the invite. I am Maren Benty. I'm originally from Ethiopia, but was raised in Italy and have lived in the US for the past 7 years. I went to high school in Oakland at Oakland Tech. And when I went to college, I was very fortunate to have learned about Oakland Rotary and East Bay College Fund, which is now part of Oakland Promise. And I was accepted into Middlebury College, which was a wonderful college to attend, but is a very expensive school. So I was very fortunate to have received the scholarship, the Cerronelina Scholarship and the Oakland Promise Scholarship that have allowed me to fill the gap, the financial gap that was missing from what my college had provided me. And also I was very fortunate to have been paired with Steve, who has been a wonderful mentor, and I'm still very close in touch with him. Clearly, even though I graduated the last year, we have a very strong relationship, and Rotary itself has been very supportive of my endeavors and projects outside of the classroom as well. In fact, 2 years ago, I started a nonprofit in Kenya for people with albinism, and both Steve and Rotary have been very supportive in providing me with the resources and support that will allow me to keep this nonprofit running in the long run as well. So I'm very thankful, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So, Maren, why don't you tell us what else you are going to do in the future?
Yes, actually, in about a month, I'm going to be going to the University of Cambridge to pursue a master's degree in international development. So I'm very excited for that journey as well. And it all happened because of my undergraduate, and Rotary was a big support of that experience. So it's all connected, and thank you.
Great, thanks, Maren. So to wrap up, Cerronelina is a great committee, and especially for you new and younger Rotarians who would like to help a student navigate college and beyond. And because Oakland Promise requires us to have gender matching, we're especially looking for women mentors. Several of our committee are attending today and will be in the various breakout sessions. So you're free to ask them about the committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. You mentioned that they will be in the breakout rooms. So Jack will have us put us in breakout room for about 6 minutes and give us a 1 minute warning before we come back. And be sure to ask them about the Cerronelina Scholarship and the mentoring, because that's the most important part about it. Is not only do we give the money, we provide the mentorship. And I think as Marion can attest, the mentorship is even more valuable than the money sometimes. So put us in the break rooms. Okay, next is Kimberly. I think you're going to Rotarian, Kimberly Miller. She's going to introduce our speaker for the day.
I sure am. Hi, everybody. Thank you, President Ces. And good afternoon, Rotarians. As we all recognize, in addition to the enduring pandemic, we have collectively been having a social reckoning over race and equity. Over the past several months, I'm sure you've witnessed many organizations, including this wonderful organization, talk about doing the work it takes to address equity and inclusion and accessibility issues that are historical to our nation, embedded in our systems, and taking a toll on all people. This national conversation is just a beginning, and a good one. Our guest speaker today, Lori Fogarty, CEO and Director of Oakland Museum of California, has been doing the work to address bias built into her institution for the last decade. The process is long and a never-ending pursuit of improvement. From hiring to admissions to the art collections, the museum is digging in and doing the necessary work to examine and then ensure that art and community are in lockstep. This includes greater transparency and participation at the staff level and reimagining its relationship with current and new museum goers. With the goal to remove barriers to participation for low-income families and communities of color and authentically engage the full diaspora that is the city of Oakland. Before her almost 15 years as the leader of the Oakland Museum of California, Lori Fogarty was the ED of the Bay Area Discovery Museum and the Senior Deputy Director of SF MoMA. Her latest project that you heard about earlier this year is the overhaul of the 7-acre campus, including a new interface with our beloved Lake Merritt, which expands the role of the museum as Oakland's town square, offering greater access to the community. Lori has received major recognition in the museum and nonprofit field as the recipient of the John Cotton Dana Award for Leadership from the American Alliance of Museums and the Hank Russo Outstanding Fundraising Professional Award from the Association of Fundraising and Professionals and past president of the Association of Art Museum Directors. Please give a warm welcome, Rotarians, to today's speaker, Lori Fogarty, as she shares with us how the work of practicing equity and inclusion is ongoing, hard, and meaningful.
Wow, thank you, Kimberly. Good to see so many of you, and I just I want to acknowledge what a great pleasure it has been for me to get to know Kimberly over these last few months. CJ and I are old pals, and when Kimberly joined Children's Fairyland, I was really excited to get to know her, and nothing like a pandemic, an economic collapse, and a racial reckoning to get to know our fellow nonprofit leaders. And Kimberly and folks from the zoo and Chabot Space and Science Center and I have all been meeting very frequently over these last few months. So I have to have my... one of the topics that we have talked quite a bit about among the leadership of these organizations has been the need to deepen our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and I would say even explicit anti-racism work. So I was very honored when Kimberly asked me to share some of the work that has been underway at the museum over these last few years and what we are working on now. And I will begin by saying, of course, I approach this topic with great humility. We are still very much on a learning path and a journey, and I think that will never stop. That will be our work for our lifetimes. So I share this with some lessons learned and some of what we've accomplished, but also knowing there's a great deal of work ahead. So what I call this talk is Inside Out and Outside In, and I understand from Kimberly that this will be a familiar theme to you all because the work does begin on the inside. We are certainly thinking about our community presence and our programming, but a lot of our work has begun and happens simultaneously inside the organization, and that's very much where we are focused right now. So I'll go on to the next slide. So just an acknowledgement, I know you all know the museum, and just this past year, we were in the midst of our 50th anniversary when the museum had to close in March. The Oakland Museum opened in September of 1969. And when it opened, it was really known as the Museum of the People. It was built on a bond measure. And very early on, the museum had a deep commitment to reflecting and uplifting the stories of California and the diverse stories of California. So early on, things like community advisory councils, strong commitment to education programs, the cultural festivals that you all probably know so well, like our Dia de los Muertos festival. These are really, this commitment is really in the DNA of our organization. So I acknowledge that the work we have done over my time at the museum is very much grounded in that history. Next slide.
No, it's okay.
So there we are, our museum staff on a sunnier day with bluer skies and days when basketball was still played and the Warriors were in the NBA championship. This is our staff, and I want to begin with staff because this is core to our work. We cannot create a sense of welcome and belonging and inclusion for our community unless we do that with our closest community, which is our staff. So a lot of the work we have been doing over these years is looking at our recruitment practices, our hiring processes, and as our staff has become more and more diverse over these last few years, how we ensure a culture that supports particularly folks who may not have a traditional background that would be seen as in traditional times as museum kind of professions. So making sure that our staff feels they have a voice, contributes to the culture, and that we're really paying attention to the staff dynamics. So that's been a big part of our work. If you could go back just quickly, also creating new roles and structures. So breaking down the silos, trying to be less hierarchical as an organization, really working much more in cross-functional teams. That's also been part of our work. And then, as I said, fostering a learning culture, a lot of work of and for staff to develop for professional development and continual training, particularly around equity and inclusion topics. All right, next slide. That's been the case with our Board of Trustees as well. This is several of our board members joining at a staff meeting. So we have an incredible board of 35 civic leaders. We've done a lot over these past few years to recruit a more diverse board. So now our board is 40% people of color, 60% women. And so that was one of the first steps, is really to have our board be more representative of the diversity of our community. The work that we're underway with now is deeper work around equity and inclusion. And that is, I really want to emphasize, individual, interpersonal, and institutional. So that means real self-exploration and self-reflection and education for individual board members, also how they engage and interact with each other, and then how our governance and leadership can be at the forefront of our work with community engagement. And what we're just starting to explore a little bit is new kinds of governance models. Museums and boards are very much come out of traditions that are not equitable and are very much kind of founded in colonialist sort of practices. So even the structures of boards can often be quite not foster inclusion. So we're exploring new models, whether that's engaging the board more with direct staff interaction, more with community partners. So beginning to look at new ways that the model itself of governance can transform. Next. A lot of the shifts that we have made in recent years do have to do with programming. And the slide you're seeing here is the 10-point platform from the Black Panther Party. This was actually a major exhibition, a temporary exhibition that we did in 2016 called All Power to the People, Black Panthers at 50, on the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party. At that time, it was the most popular exhibition we had ever done. We had over 85,000 people attend that exhibition, and I hope many of you had a chance to see it. In the final weekend of the exhibition, we had lines around the block to get into the show. And because of that popularity, we've actually taken pieces from our collection and exhibit elements and now installed them permanently in our history gallery. So that's what you're seeing now, the Black Power section of our history gallery. So some of the work began many years ago when we reinstalled our galleries. We did a major project back in between about 2008 and 2012, the first major renovation in the museum's history, and we also reinstalled our 3 core collection galleries of art, history, and natural sciences. And we did a lot at that point to really place the visitor at the center of the experience. How do we make the visitor comfortable? How do we make California art, history, and natural sciences accessible and welcoming to a very broad audience? We also started to put in practice community co-created exhibitions, meaning we actually, we bring community members in a very deep way to creating our exhibitions. So, for example, with the All Power to the People exhibition, we worked very closely with former members of the Black Panther Party, with folks involved with Black Lives Matter. We had many collaborators involved with different ways with the exhibition, from developing the themes and content to lending artworks or artifacts to commissioning projects, community created projects. And that's been the case with all of our recent major exhibitions. So the hip hop exhibition we did a few years ago, the Altered State Marijuana in California exhibition, and is happening right now. The first exhibition, temporary exhibition that we will open when the museum is allowed to open safely is called Mothership, A Voyage to Afrofuturism. And we're working with dozens of community members and artists on that project. And that really ties into the programming for relevance. We made the shift a few years ago to focus our exhibition programming on topics and themes that have a particular relevance in Oakland, have a statewide and in some cases more national resonance as well, but really looking at those topics that are so distinctive to Oakland and to California that with our collections and our multidisciplinary focus that we are uniquely positioned to present. Next slide. We also see ourselves in many ways as more than a museum, and this is going to be coming into fulfillment much more with our campus renovation that Kimberly mentioned and that I understood you heard about, I think, from Walter Hood a few months ago. So we are a museum, but we are also so uniquely positioned right in the heart of Oakland, Lake Merritt, which is in so many ways a kind of hub of the spokes of our city, with all of the work that has happened around the lake with Measure DD, Lake Merritt itself becoming such a central gathering place. And, you know, as was noted earlier, we're across the street from Laney College. We're right next to the Lake Merritt BART station and all of the development that is underway there. And next door to the Henry J. Kaiser Center, which is also planned for renovation and redevelopment in the coming years. So we really see ourselves as having the opportunity to be a town square. And I would say where we recognize that capacity in a huge way in the last few years was with the success of Friday nights at the Oakland Museum of California. I hope many of you pre-COVID had a chance to come to our Friday nights. We started those in 2013. The picture there in the middle is one of our Friday nights. I mean, it's kind of crazy making right now because it looks like such an infraction of social distancing, but in the days where we could come together, that program weekly, 50 weeks a year, every Friday night other than during the holidays, we would come together and have live music, DJs, hands-on activities, lectures, films, and programming. And in the last summer where we were able to really operate at full capacity, we would attract between 4,000 and 5,000 people a week on Friday nights. And then, of course, we remain beloved for the cultural celebrations that we do and the programs that promote dialogue. So the top picture is an educator that we work with from the Ohlone Nation who works with children around Native traditions in our school programs. And then I think the bottom picture is just a family member enjoying one of our Friday nights. And this is transformed our audience, and I'll let you go to the next slide. And I do, you know, any chance I can have to show David Diggs at the museum, I do. This was a program called Park Jam that was a couple of years ago that we presented in conjunction with our hip hop exhibition. But as we think about inside out and outside in, we have done a lot of work to better understand our audience and what our audience needs are. So we do a lot of evaluation. We survey our audience. We understand who our audience, not just what our audience composition is, but needs and interests. We do a lot of qualitative evaluation with our audiences around all of our exhibitions. And again, with the work on the inside and the work in programming, we have seen quite a dramatic shift in our audience over just about the past 5 years. So in the last fiscal year, when we could do on-site evaluation for a full year, about 56% of our audience were people of color, and about 60% of our audience were under 50 years old. And those statistics are really unheard of for a museum. We are in Oakland, so we should be more diverse, but that's really unusual for a museum. And that the audience age actually doesn't include even our school groups. That's general audiences. So the Friday nights in particular helped us really attract a family audience, audience like we had never seen before of adults with young children. Next. So I'll just end with a little bit about our journey continuing. So what you're seeing here, we are, as I've noted, underway with a major campus renovation. And really the three big aspects of that, we are opening up the corner of our building, which looked like kind of a back of a parking garage. It was, you know, our brutalist architecture is our blessing and our curse in many ways. And the corner of the museum on 12th Street had really turned our back on Lake Merritt with all of the activity now, and it was such a missed opportunity. So we have opened up that corner of the museum so that people walking around Lake Merritt or in that area going back and forth between Lake Merritt and BART Station can actually come through the museum and into our gardens. We are adding an ADA ramp there so folks can come in that entrance and then easily find accessibility up to the second level of the museum. And what you're seeing here is another entry. This is our 10th Street entry. So if you can picture this, this is the facade facing Laney College. Again, it had been a large concrete wall that was the wall of our cafe. And we have opened a huge window there. So there's visibility now from that space out to 10th Street and from the street back into the museum, and adding a direct entry there into the cafe, both for accessibility and so that we can keep the cafe open even when the museum isn't fully open to the public. And we are thrilled that Tanya Holland will be will be operating our cafe when we are able to reopen, and the name of the restaurant will be Town Fare, F-A-R-E. So the physical transformation is really a manifestation of us even further opening the museum to our surrounding community. We have also used these last few weeks, while we have all been sheltering in place and the museum has been closed, to really do some internal work. And we have invited our full staff to participate in an effort around anti-racism and equity, and looking at every aspect of our operations internally, again, at hiring and recruitment and hiring, our fundraising and financial practices, our community partnerships, and how we engage our community, our structures, our organizational structure, and of course, our programming. So, so that work is continuing, and I think it was a moment for us to say that we have been the museum of the people for the last 50 years, and now taking an even deeper dive into what it means to be a museum of the people for our next 50 years. So I will stop there. I'm seeing some questions in the chat that I'd be very happy to answer. So.
Okay.
Really, should I? Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Well,
President Butner.
that was great. Great for you to inform us. We're going to have Susie. I think you're handling the questions in chat.
Great. Thank you, President Ces. So the first question is, I know I saw the question. There we go. Is the museum currently open for visitors with social distancing?
No, because of the Alameda County guidelines, the museum is not yet allowed to open. We did get approval to bring a small number of staff, kind of core facility staff, to come on site and prepare the museum for the public opening. And don't get Kimberly and me started on this topic, because it could be the subject of a series of talks for you all. It is complicated, and we are really driven by the county guidelines. So to the best of our, what we can project and anticipate now, our hope is to open in early November. And because it will really take 5 or 6 weeks for our staff to fully prepare the museum once we are given the full green light. And so it'll take that long length of time. The good news is, and I would say if anybody is driving by Lake Merritt, drive by the museum and see the work underway. What you won't see is inside the garden and lawn area. And we are anticipating that to be complete by the end of October. So when we reopen, we'll be able to really feature that gorgeous outdoor space, which I mentioned the 2 entries. What I didn't mention is working with Walter Hood and Hood Design, an Oakland-based landscape architect, we're completely transforming the garden space with full replanting as well. So we'll be able to have that gorgeous space open for outdoor, gathering as well.
Great. And Robert Kidd wants to know, what is the OMCA doing to connect with the programs and students and Laney College?
So we have a great partnership with Laney and have for many years. We have a program that offers free admission to Laney students. So Laney students and faculty can come to the museum at any time. And, you know, we've done different classes, have done collaborations with the museum. And, you know, we work with the President's office very closely, especially around all of the development that we've been doing to open up the museum. So, and we've done some work with them in featured programs, for example, at Friday nights. So we love working with Laney, and such an important resource right across the street from us.
Thank you. Linda Hamilton wants to know, what is the museum doing with digital online outreach, exhibits content to exhibit both the museum and public when open to encourage people into the museum?
Wow, I couldn't have planted these questions any better. Thank you, Rotarians, for these questions. So we have done a lot of digital programming, and I encourage you to take a look on our website, which is museumca.org. We've had a program called OMCA at Home, and we have an incredible array of programs. So everything from an object of the week, where we have one of our curators or collection staff talk about an object in our collection. We've had a program called Nest in Place, because we have a lot of staff who are avid bird watchers and share bird watching tips. And we have a natural sciences sound collection, so bird calls. And I would say most prominently, we do have some exhibition walkthroughs. Most prominently, we just released a specific website on our Dorothea Lange archive. If folks don't know, the Oakland Museum, one of the great treasures is that we own the Dorothea Lange archives, and 25,000 negatives, about 5,000 prints, plus her journals, her work papers. And we have done a lot of work over the last 3 years to digitize those collections, and they are now available online. And it is, I mean, her work is so timely right now, alas, but it's really an incredible resource. So I encourage you to take a look at that.
CJ Hirschfeld is asking, Lori, talk about your plans to preserve the amazing murals that have gone up in recent months. And her comment is wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you, CJ, for that. Right away, so I hope many of you have had a chance to go through, take a drive or take a walk along the Broadway corridor in downtown Oakland, or into Chinatown, into Old Town. Right away in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder and the protests, the artist community came out and began to paint just extraordinary murals and what we call protest art on the plywood in front of storefronts and businesses. Some of you may have businesses where you have these works. And we were hearing from elected officials and the public and members saying, can the museum help make sure that these are preserved? So we partnered pretty quickly with the Black Cultural Zone and with Oakland Art Murmur on an effort to make sure these murals are preserved and stewarded. And most importantly, that they're not just artworks, they are part of moving forward a movement. And so we call our effort Art for the Movement. And you can learn again on our website. We have guiding principles to that effort. We did just actually do a talk for our members last night, a panel. This is another online program about our efforts. And we will be doing a series of public programs, online virtual programs over the next 3 months with our collaborators. At this point, most of the murals are still up. The business owners want to keep the murals up for the moment, but the ones that have come down, the museum has helped transport. They're being stored at a facility, a space that the Black Cultural Zone has access to in the Eastmont Mall. But we are really working to make sure we connect. We know who the artists are, we know who the business owners are, we know what the documentation is, and with the permission of the artists and the property owners, as they start to come down, we'll be tracking those, documenting those, storing those at least temporarily until we can determine how they should be used. Hopefully in exhibitions, beginning with exhibitions that the Black Cultural Zone will really lead, but my hope is that eventually we'll be able to showcase some of those at the museum as well.
We have other questions?
Yes, sorry about that. Anna Marie says, great presentation, Lori. Do you have virtual docents or ways to do something like that for a particular event?
Yeah, so, unfortunately, we're probably not going to be able to do school field trips this year because of, the school situation. We also, we love our docents. We have about 200 active docents. That said, many of them are in a vulnerable population. So we do have a core group of docents who will be doing virtual school exhibit walkthroughs and tours for school kids. We're still looking at what might be possible to do online. We're hoping when we are able to open, we will be able to do, small scale tours. But the field trips will be doing a lot of work to partner with the schools for virtual programming in the coming year.
All right.
Last question, Mary Jiang, about the Friday night event. She's asking is that when the different food trucks are there?
Yeah, so the Friday nights at the Oakland Museum are a partnership with Off the Grid, and that's when they bring their food trucks. And we are not doing them now because of, all of the capacity requirements. Best hope right now is that we might be able to start doing them in the spring. But again, that'll be really subject to the health guidelines. So yes, it is where the food trucks are. Again, we're hoping we can bring those back in some form or fashion in the spring.
Great, thank you. That's it for the questions, I believe.
All right, thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you. Really appreciate this opportunity, and it's great to see everybody, and we hope to see you back at the museum when we're able to safely gather again.
Well, thank you for being our speaker today and letting us know what Oakland Museum is doing for racial diversity and inclusion, which is very near and dear to us, as you know.
Thank you. I do. Thank you.
This year, our club is making homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as our gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland. Additionally, we will like to give you a centennial book, which documents 100 years of friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland number 3, written by our very own Rotarian, Linda Hamilton. So thank you so much for coming, Lori, and we appreciate it. Rotarian Anne Maria Jones, do we have any bell ringers today?
Thank you, Ces. Yes, we do. In honor of our Rich Halleck, we have a bell ring from Bob Breeker and from Linda and Jim Bosenecker.
All right. I always love those bell ringers, as many as we can get. Rotarian Tom Lamone, will you tell us about a very special speaker we're having next week?
Yes, thank you, President Ces. Next week, we have a very close friend, a family friend, Arabella Martinez. She's been an amazing local community leader, leading the charge in community development and economic development. So she's coming next week to share some stories of similarities to what's happened 50 years ago and what's happening now today, and how she was able to get activated and address a lot of the concerns we still have today. Thank you, Ces.
Thank you, Tom, for that tease. Next week's Civic Thursday. That's what we call them here. And thank you, Dominic, for the thought for today. Thank you, Steve, for keeping us updated on Cerronelina. Thank you, Kimberly, for introducing the speaker. And finally, a big thank you to Jesse Schmidt, our sponsor for this meeting. And TNT, let's get our workout going on. Pat, before I wrap this meeting, we don't have any more bell ringers or something, do we? You always catch me at the last minute. So I'd like to end this meeting.
No, we don't. No,
All
that's
right.
it, Ces. Yep.
So I'd like to end this meeting as usual, and that's the way it went on the 5,308th club meeting on September 10th, 2020 at Oakland Rotary number 3, the third oldest Rotary club in the world, where service above self reigns. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.